Hi, everybody. Welcome to fourth grade book talks. We're going to be talking about some of the suggested titles on your going into fourth grade reading list. So welcome. We are the Beebe Library Youth Room Librarians, and we have with us today Annie Hockheiser and Heidi Zeibig, and my name's Nancy Sheehan. We're also going to invite you to participate in our summer reading program, Imagine Your Story. And that starts June 22nd. So we hope that you're going to have a fun summer with us. And yeah, we'll get right to our book talks right now. If it's okay, we'll kick off with Miss Annie.
Thank you, Miss Nancy.
You're
Hi,
very
everybody. I'm Miss Annie. The first book that I want to tell you about is It Ain't So Awful Falafel by Fairest of Them. So this is a historical fiction book, and it is set in the 1970s. And Iranian-American girl named Zomarad is the new kid on the block for the fourth time. This time in California's Newport Beach, Zamarad is really determined to get rid of this reputation as a brainy sort of loner kid and just start all over from scratch. One of the first things she does is she picks out a new name for herself. She picks Cindy, which is a name that she gets from the TV show The Brady Bunch. And as Cindy, she thinks that she's really going to fit in much better than she did as Zomarad. She ends up having a lot of trouble fitting in, though, because in the late 1970s, Iran makes a lot of headlines in the United States with protests and revolution and even taking American hostages. And Cindy, or Zomarad, is of Iranian descent. And so she's feeling the effects of these prejudices that are coming from her peers because of her heritage. So even things like, mood rings and puka shell necklaces aren't really able to distract her from the anti-Iran sentiments that are really coming in and hitting very close to home for her. Now, I know it doesn't sound terribly funny, but I promise you, there's a lot of comedy in this book. And that's what's really interesting about it is Fairest of Them is taking kind of heavy topics, but she's presenting them with a little bit of humor and making them a bit lighter in It Ain't So Awful Falafel. So this is a great story to look at a retelling of the author's own life and her own experience as an Iranian-American person growing up in the US in the 1970s.
Hi, everyone. My first book is Dragon Pearl from the Rick Riordan Presents series by Korean author Yoon-ha Lee. 13-year-old Min would like nothing more to get out or escape from her neglected, dust-ridden planet of Jinju. Min feels smothered by her household. There's a lot of rules, people judge her, they crowd her, and she would just like to leave. You'd never know it by looking at this family, but there is something special about it. They come from a long line of fox spirits. Now, fox spirits have the ability to charm and to shape shift. They must appear human at all times. Min's mother is afraid because there's always people on their planet that would love to get their hands on a fox spirit. So she's not allowed to shapeshift. But she's still counting the days until she can follow her older brother, Chun, into the space forces and see more worlds outside her own planet. Then one day, an emissary from the galactic government visits her family farm. He brings horrible news that Min's brother, Chun, is missing. Worse, he's suspected of treason or abandoning his post to search for that lost mystical object that has a power to terraform worlds. It's called the Dragon Pearl. So she decides to run away and risk everything she has to find her brother and clear his name. Get ready for epic battles, magic lasers, ghosts, dragons, interstellar pirates. The Thousand Worlds hold all sorts of danger, but there's also magical treasures to be discovered. If Min succeeds, she might not just save her brother, she might just save her entire planet. Read Dragon Pearl by Yoon-ha Lee.
My first book today is based on an event that took place here in Boston decades ago called the Great Molasses Flood. Now, this is an event with all that has gone on historically in Boston. The Great Molasses Flood is greatly overlooked in the Boston area. Long ago, molasses was a great big business, and they used molasses for a number of things. Some of it was to make bombs with, and way back when. And so molasses was a really big business, and they used to store molasses in enormous tanks. You know, if you've ever seen a water tank, you know, in a town, you sort of get the idea of how big a tank can be. And so anyway, Boston had these molasses tanks, and they were not in very good repair. And someone noticed one day that there were cracks in the molasses tanks, because back then they were made of wood. And so the tanks would get these little cracks in them. And, you know, so they went to someone went to the people who owned the tanks and said, hey, you know, that tank is, you know, starting to leak. You might want to fix that. And so they fixed it. They painted it brown. That's how they fixed it. They didn't close up the holes. They didn't replace the tank. They didn't take the molasses out of the old tank and put in a new tank. No, they painted it brown so it didn't bother people and they didn't have to look at it. And so what happened was one day, in fact, the tank just burst and it filled the streets of Boston with molasses. Now, if you've never seen molasses, molasses is a dark, sticky, sugary substance that is like glue. And so just imagine glue getting all over everything in your neighborhood. You know, and back then, you know, it got on the horses that people used to travel and do their business with and haul freight with and go from town to town with. It was a mess, and it was a real catastrophe. So if you would like to read about a story, it's not a true story, it's just based on the time of the Great Molasses Flood, you may be interested in the I Survived the Great Molasses Flood of 1919 story by Lauren Tarshis. And the Great Molasses Flood story is just one in the installments of the I Survived series, but this one takes place locally, so I thought I would tell you about that one.
The next book I want to tell you about is The Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste. Corinne Lemur is not afraid of anything. She's not afraid of scorpions or the boys who tease her, and she is certainly not afraid of Jumbies. Jumbies, everyone knows, they're not even real anyway. It's just a ghost story made up to frighten children. There's not actually evil spirits on the island where Corinne lives. But when a mysterious stranger comes to town and bewitches Corinne's father, suddenly the Jumbies don't seem so unrealistic. And even worse, Corinne learns that the bewitching of her father is just part one of the Jumbies' plan to take over her entire island. So Corinne has to now call on her courage, on her friends, and she also learns that there is an ancient magic within her that she didn't even know about, and she now needs to learn how to harness and possess this in order to stop the Jumbies and save her father and her island home as well. So Tracy Baptiste, The Jumbies is a spine-tingling page-turner, and this is actually a retelling and sort of putting a twist on the classic Haitian folktale, The Magic Orange Tree. So this is a really cool pick if you are into sort of spooky and thriller novels, if you're into fantasy, and or if you're into folklore as well. So there's really a lot that is packed in here, and in my opinion it also has a great cover.
My next book is a graphic series called Rutabaga, the Adventure Chef by Eric Colasso. Rutabaga and his trusting traveling companion, Pop, live in a medieval world in search of adventure and exotic magical ingredients for all of his recipes. When a party of adventurers runs across him, he decides to join them with his huge portable kitchen strapped to his back and his battle cry, "Let's get cooking!" With his new friends, he goes in search of a dragon, and later they find monsters that he's trying to figure out a recipe for. He gets hired to cook for a king's new pet, a strange lizard-like creature named Norman, and he ends up in a cook-off with a guy that only can cook one thing, so it's not much of a cookout. His adventures continue through the next several books in this series as he feeds his friends while saving the world. Read Rutabaga, the Adventure Chef by Eric Colasso.
Evan and Jesse are brother and sister, and they are having some problems getting along this summer. In particular, what is weighing on Evan's mind is that he and his younger sister are going to be in the same grade next year because Jessie is so bright that she got double promoted. And he's not looking forward to this. And so the two of them are kind of fighting. They're fighting. That's what they're doing, is they're fighting. It's what brothers and sisters do. Sometimes they can't help it. And so, you know, they're nitpicking at each other, getting on each other's nerves. And you know, the two of them decide kind of at the same time that maybe what they are going to do to pass the time this August, because it's getting to be that time of summer where, you know, you're just getting kind of grumpy, that it's time to start a lemonade stand. Jessie's really smart and she's super good at math. And so she thinks this is going to be a pretty decent venture. And, you know, Evan's watching her and he's thinking, you know, I would do a lemonade stand differently than that. And he starts thinking about how he would, you know, how he would sell the lemonade and package the lemonade so that people want it more, you know, and so he's thinking of more about strategy of selling his, you know, lemonade in his mind. And then he decides, okay, well, maybe I'll do a lemonade stand too. And of course, Jessie gets really upset. This was her idea. What's he doing? What's he thinking? What in the world? So they decide that how they're gonna solve this bickering is they're both gonna open lemonade stands. And whichever one of them gets to sell $100 worth of lemonade first gets the earnings of the second person. And so the brother and sister enter into a winner take all lemonade stand contest. Find out which one of them is going to win the Lemonade Wars by Jacqueline Davies. Is Evan going to win using his soft skills of attracting people, or is Jessie with her hard and fast statistics and math skills going to win out? Find out.
So Marty Preston, right here, and the little beagle that he finds in the hills behind his house become really fast friends, but their friendship pretty quickly turns into trouble. The dog, which Marty named Shiloh, actually belongs to Marty's neighbor, Judd Travers, who is just a very cruel-hearted man. He drinks too much, he owns a lot of guns, and he also abuses his dogs. He hurts them. So when Shiloh runs away from Judd to Marty can't say no. He has to take this little dog in and hide him and protect him from his neighbor, Judd. But Marty's secret pretty quickly becomes a little bit too big for him to keep all by himself, and it exposes his whole family and Shiloh to Judd's anger. So we have to find out how far Marty is willing to go to make Shiloh his own and protect this dog and protect his family as well. So to find out, you'll want to check out Shiloh, which is the classic story by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. And this is a really great story if you are a dog lover or an animal lover in general. And if you read this and you're eager for more Shiloh, this is the first in a quartet, so there are 4 total Shiloh books that you are able to check out.
Nice. The next book is from the Whatever After series by Sarah Mlynowski. This is a series that is of fractured fairy tales, which are funny rewrites of traditional tales. So the first book is The Fairest of Them All. Once upon a time, siblings Abby and Jonah were normal kids. The next minute, the mirror in their basement slurped them up and magically transformed them into Snow White's castle. Sounds crazy, but they turn into heroes when they stop Snow White from eating a poison apple. Hooray, right? Or not. If Snow White doesn't die, she won't get to meet the prince, and she won't get her happily ever after. Oops. Now it's up to Abby and Jonah to avoid getting poisoned, sneak into a castle, fix Snow White's story, and get back through the mirror before it vanishes. Will they get out in time? What would you do? You may want to rewrite one of your own stories sometime. Have tons of fun with the Whatever After series by Sarah Mlynowski. Good.
Something very strange is going on in the Cunningham house. In the refrigerator, we find white broccoli, white carrots, and white potatoes. Oh, okay, all right, potatoes always were white. Okay, but still, the broccoli used to be green, the carrots used to be orange. Something is draining the juice and the color out of all the vegetables in the house. What can it be? Harold and Chester look to the new pet, because if you look at the new pet very, very closely, you will see that his teeth resemble teeny tiny little fangs. And so they suspect that this new pet, in fact, is not just a little fluffy fur ball that's getting all the attention and taking it away from Chester the cat and Harold the dog. They suspect that this new pet is actually a vampire. That's right. They're convinced the new bunny is a vampire. Find out if Funicula rises to his newfound fame in Funicula by Deborah Howe.
The last book that I want to tell you about today is Stand Up Yumi Chung by Jessica Kim. Now, on the outside, Yumi Chung suffers from #shygirl problems. She has a perm that's gone wrong. She has kids at school that call her You-Meat because she smells like Korean barbecue because her family owns a Korean barbecue restaurant. But on the inside, Yumi is ready for her Netflix stand-up special. She has this notebook that is filled with different mortifying, really embarrassing memories that she's reworked so they are no longer embarrassing, but they're comedy gold instead. But that's not really what she's doing this summer. Her parents have sent her to a test prep tutoring session so she can take this test and qualify for a school scholarship so she can get the money to go to this private school, blah, blah, blah. Not really how Yumi wanted to spend her summer. Things change a bit though when Yumi's walking downtown and sees a sign for a comedy camp that is actually taught by her favorite comedian. So Yumi wanders in just to have a look and see what's going on. But when she walks in, the comedian who's leading the camp says, "Oh, hi Kay, that must be you in the back. Come on in." And Yumi, whose name is definitely not Kay, says, "Okay." And she walks in and pretends to be this girl Kay. So she's in a little bit of a pickle here. And In Stand Up Yumi Chung by Jessica Kim, Yumi's mistaken identity quickly begins to unravel, and Yumi is left to decide what she's going to do. Is she going to stand up and actually reveal the truth here and risk losing her dreams? Or is she going to keep up this lie and disappoint the people that she cares about the most? This is a really funny story. There's lots of laughs in it. And there's also a lot of great friendships and a family story as well. And it's also a lovely story as well about a first-generation child of immigrants.
My last book is The Tapper Twins Go to War, book 1 in a series by Jeff Rodkey. This is the story of 12-year-old twins, Reese and Claudia, who decide to go to war after each one crazy incident after another. It all begins with Claudia eats Reese's Pop-Tart for breakfast. Then Reese humiliates Claudia in school cafeteria by embarrassing her. Then Claudia gets revenge by hiding dead fish in Reese's backpack, and so on. It goes back and forth. Then Reese invites his friend over to their house. Claudia isn't too concerned that anything will happen because they're going to be in Reese's bedroom and Claudia is going to be locked in her room. So she decides, Claudia, to test out a love song she wrote for about a boy she likes in school. She sings the song and goes to sleep. The next morning, her phone's ringing off the hook by her friends. Check your Facebook page. Oh my gosh. And there it was, her song all over social media. Reese managed to hide a camera in her room way before she got there, and she's mortified. If it was war now, it's devastation now, because Claudia decided to take the war to cyberspace and Reese's favorite game of MetaWorld. To see how it all turns out, read The Tapper Twins and the other 2 books in the series by Jeff Rodkey.
The last book we're going to tell you about today is called From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. And this book is a mystery. And if you like mysteries, this might be a book you want to read. Now, every kid dreams at some point of just running away, just sort of checking out and hiding out, and sort of leaving behind all their irritating problems. And young Claudia is no different. So Claudia, every now and then, just starts thinking about, well, if I were going to run away, what kind of place would I run away to? What would I do? How would I live? So while she's thinking about all of these things, she actually comes up with a very interesting plan that she decides to pursue. Claudia decides that she is going to run away and live in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. But she realizes that to really be successful as a runaway, she's going to have to bring along her pesky little brother, Jamie. But Jamie has skills that Claudia doesn't have. And so the 2 of them head out to run away together and live in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. While they're there, they uncover an art mystery. And the answer to the art mystery lies in the files of the mysterious Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. Will they be able to find her? Will they be able to get to the bottom of this art mystery? To find out, check out E.L. Konigsberg's From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. And so those are some of the books that you're going to find on your suggested reading list for incoming 4th graders this summer. And once again, we invite you to participate in Beebe Library's 2020 summer reading program, Imagine Your Story. We hope you read lots this summer, and happy summer. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.